Okay, good.
So, hi everyone. Thanks for joining in the evening. And today we are blessed to have a sector expert. So, let me take the opportunity to introduce our guest for today. So, today we have Mr. Satish NK. He's an engineer by profession, and he's very enthusiastic about technology and its impact on the society, right? And as far as investment is concerned, it is his hobby, and he always try to keep a balance between investing and the core tech work, which he is into entirely. And this session is more to understand the nuances of the sector, covering all the value chain. So there could be two understanding. One is what the sector is all about, and how one should see various aspects within this sector. And secondly, how those pointers can be used while evaluating companies which are into this sector directly or indirectly. So with that note, I request Satish it would be interesting, though I also know little about you, so it would be good to get some sense on your background, how it all started for you, be it your career in telecom and investing. And as we progress with this session, so our audience are free to make it as interactive as possible. And Satish would be having good questions. So, with that note, over to you, Satish.
Yeah, thanks, Prince. Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Satheesha. I'm from the tech industry. I'm based out of Bangalore. So I joined this industry in 1997. I think, of course, when I started my career out of college, I was not in telecom, but since 2001, I'm in telecom sector at various R&D positions, and I spent time here and abroad for some time working in this. So I'm just observing this industry, right? But when I was young, it was just work for me. Just go do something in telecom and come out. So they used to pay me well. I used to enjoy life, do something. But of late, I started understanding why we are working so hard. We have such wonderful people working with us compared to any other industry, but still we are not making money at the telecom level. Then I started understanding what is going wrong, why in India telecom is not was not doing extremely well before 2014. What were the issues, and how the whole ecosystem works. So that drove me. So and also I'm a part-time investor. So I spend maybe 20-30 minutes every week to see what I can do with my investment and put whatever money I have. But coming to telecom is not a industry. It's a wonderful ecosystem where different stakeholders are involved. We have government, we have the utility company, there is operators, we have the technology companies, we have the service providers, we have the software companies, we have everything available here, and everything centered around people. So it's a people-centric business we need to understand, and nothing can happen against the interest of people, because in India at least more than a billion people are dependent on this utility or telecom. So you can never take a decision, and no bad decision can be taken by any stakeholder in the ecosystem that is against the interest of people. So whenever that happens, you see some drastic steps being taken by other stakeholders. So maybe with that, let's start off. So maybe the whole idea is, what I want to know is, I want to explain telecom in depth. So as I was discussing with Prince, we'll have it. I prepared a short slide set. At the same time, I want to go for a whiteboard session so that I can draw things and see how deep the rabbit hole goes. So as I was telling, we'll do that, and in the meantime, we'll discuss some companies, not the numbers. I just take the example of companies that are working in that particular area. Maybe you can go and study and take your own decision whether you want to invest. If you're investing, how much portfolio allocation you want to take. But that is not the whole idea of this presentation, because it is not a investment session. It's more a technology understanding session, or ecosystem understanding session. So with that, if you see here, telecom is all about connecting humanity. So it has a policy angle that is from the government. Government decides what has to happen. We'll go a little deep in subsequent slides. And we have the standards where all the companies, all the shareholders or stakeholders in the company, they make sure that the system should work this way. They define the interfaces, how different ecosystem or companies or components should work. Then that is about standards. And this something we'll just delve through for 10-15 minutes. Then we have a technology layer where people, after standards are being done, they implement technology that is little deep. And then using those technology, there are people who are going to offer services. Services may be operators or tower companies or whatever it is. So it's huge basically. Services itself is a huge thing, and India is very good at it. But we are yet to go with technology. Policy we were zero. We are getting into policy in a very good way. Standards we are zero till 4G, and very minimal present in 5G. I'll explain how it impacted our country as a whole and our industry as a whole because of that, and how it's going to evolve. So this is how the different aspects of telecom ecosystem comes into picture. Maybe once you understand it, whenever you read a snippet in the newspaper, you will get to know what is happening. So, Prince, is it good to go to the next slide? Is it fine?
Yes, Satish, please go ahead. We'll
Thank you.
interrupt as and when we have questions, and same for the audience. They can simply raise their hands or unmute and ask question as and when.
So this is how the flow and the loops that happen, right? First, the policy comes. For example, Government of India, for example, says, I want to provide connectivity to everyone in the country. Everyone means it's about people who are staying in mega cities. It is people with an income level of certain quantum. Then it's about people who are staying in tier two cities, tier three cities. It's about people who are staying in villages. It's about people who are staying in very remote areas. Government says, I want everyone to be connected, and I want everyone to be connected at a affordable way. I don't want anybody to burden. I want to make sure that the services are offered in a reliable, consistent, affordable way so that everybody is benefited. Because government, based on this, is going to define their welfare policies. Ultimately, government is all about welfare, right? So the policy is done by them. Then, based on the policy, we have industry. The industry is a combination of all the stakeholders here. It may be operators, the tower providers, steel providers, cable providers, everybody basically. There's the industry. Then we have operators, and we have technology providers. Technology providers, for example, in the Indian context, are like Tejas. In the international context, it's going to be Nokia, Ericsson, Samsung, Huawei, ZTE, all those people. They all sit together and form something called standards, right? And just imagine. So for telecom, whether it is 3G, 4G, 5G, or the upcoming 6G that may happen in 8 to 10 years, it's all going to be driven by something called 3GPP, 3G Partnership Project. So 3GPP has delegates from each and every company. So till 5G, can you believe India did not have any representation here? And standards is 90% geopolitics and 10% technology. It's all about how you push your agenda into standards. So once your agenda is pushed in, everything else falls in place. It's for example, I'll tell you, if somebody in Europe defines what is rural connectivity, and if that gets into the standard, so that becomes the baseline for technology companies to implement that. And if you don't have the right technology about rural connectivity that is applicable to India, there is no way you can provide a optimal connectivity with the optimal pricing to the rural India. So that's how powerful the policy and standards are. And unfortunately, we are absent, but we are becoming very strong. Maybe we'll go through that. So this policy and standards goes throughout, right? The policy and standards cover how the standards should look like. Then it tries to see how the operators should work, how the technology should be implemented by the operators, how the sharing of the technology should happen between operators, how the revenue should be shared, how much you need to charge to the people. So everything comes in policy. So policy is a good and or it may become bad also for the operators, but that's how business goes. So that's why if you see the policy here, the policy goes from let me just put it this way. The policy goes from left to right. So you can never escape policy. Policy is always there. Policy and standards keep evolving. Of course, standards evolve; they don't change once it is done, unless it is appended. But it's very less that standards get appended once it is confirmed and approved, and technology companies start working on it. But the policies keep getting updated, whether it is a spectrum licensing policy and a spectrum auction policy, everything. Okay, now what happens? All the powerful people, influential people from politics, technology, operator, they sat and they arrived at some set of rules and policies and standards that is beneficial to everyone. Okay, that is a very tough political thing, but somehow it happened. Now, all these technology companies start picking it up. Of course, all these technology companies were part of this also, because whatever policy or standard it is being done, it should be favorable to these technology companies so that they can implement them at reasonable cost. Otherwise, their products may become very expensive, or whatever is getting into standard should be what they're capable of or what they already have. So in the technology space, we'll have chip makers like Intel, Marvel, all those people. We have telecom vendors. Right now, we have Ericsson, Nokia, then we have Samsung, we have Huawei, ZTE, all those people. Then we have software vendors. Of course, there are some Indian telecom vendors that are coming, but they are not very prevalent. But I'll explain how these things work. But as of now, they are not there. Then we have core technology enablers, like people who provide core software services and they manage. Then once this technology is done, the operator comes into picture. So we have operators, means we call it a CSP, a cellular service providers. So in this category, we have huge companies. They are most utility like Bharti Airtel, Verizon Wireless, Reliance Jio. They all come. Then there are tower companies here who install towers and manage them, like Indus Tower in India and Geo Towers. Then we have connectivity and transport providers, because how do you connect different components through fiber and other stuff? Then we have auxiliary service providers like providing software services, survey services, means if you want to do RF planning, radio frequency planning about where to put towers and other stuff, all those things come here. So this is another ecosystem. So they also move around. See, if you see here, the policy is running all through the technology. Once they give initially, these people, when they start using technology, runs all along. Then these auxiliary companies start little late, but they go all along. So in this, if you see, it's evolving thing. The moment the standard ends here, they reach a logical net for 5G, they start off with 6G. So the complete thing shifts. So when they shift, the whole blocks shift to the right, and people understand we are moving to 6G. Then the business layer comes into picture, when to install, what to do, and all. Okay, this is how the flow is. Of course, if you see, there may be a thousand or 2,000 companies working all across basically here. The companies that are working only in standards, there are companies who are working only in technology, developing crucial components. There are companies who help the operator in system integration. There are companies who are just installing towers. There are companies who are helping tower companies to manage their towers, right? And there are auxiliary service companies who provide minor services and make money. And there are huge critical transport connectivity providers. So they are the things. So let me go to the next slide. Wonderful. This is very important. Policy and standards. As I was telling, the mobile broadband standard is driven by collaboration of 3GP. It is 3G partnership product. It is a partnership project. So it produced technical specifications to be transposed by 7 standardization bodies. If you see, these 7 standardization parties are very, very powerful. For example, ITSI represents European Union. So its job is to make sure that European interests are taken care of. CCSA, I think it is American. TTA and TTC are Japanese, and ARIB is South Korea, ARIB and ATIS, and this TSDSI we need to be proud of. This was not present. Now we are very strong in standards. We are pushing like anything. And we need to understand how to become so powerful, what enabled India to get into this high table. So TSDSI is a body that has representation from all the stakeholders in India. It has companies like Bharti, Geo, it has all small companies. Just when you get a chance, go to the TSDSI website. Maybe if I get a chance, I will open it up and show it. It is all the companies that are going to contribute in one way or the other towards developing standards that are beneficial to India and push their case through. So this is what is in the context of 6G, right? What is going to come? And India has a seat right now in the standards. It was not the case in 5G. We are trying to push through, but some things didn't work for whatever reason. But still, right now things may happen. And if you see some news, as of now, there was a summit, standard summit last week, and it's going to happen next week in Delhi. Excuse me. That talks about how India should make sure that the standards are beneficial to its economy as a country. So this is how it is as far as standards are concerned. Then we have technology. Technology is about converting standards to a working building block. I'll explain how the building blocks look like. Maybe we'll take a whiteboard session for them. Then what they do is when they're trying to do, they don't want to put too much money, right? So you need to understand when the standards come, converting that standard to a proof of concept, it takes anywhere between 1 to 2 years. Means the companies who are working here should have the ability and R&D budget to invest for at least 1.5 to 2 years. Then they need to be so powerful that whatever they are doing, they should secure their work through IPR rights, intellectual property rights, so that they have enough patent so that in the future, nobody can infringe into their technology and come out with a product that distorts their business. So technology, one of the very important thing is they make sure that all their work is secured through IPR. And in this case, please understand any company that is working without IPR, any technology company, is not worth basically because it either is working with they seem like a technology company, but it may be like a time and effort business. Means you put some time, burn some money, you will have a product, but you can never secure your technology or a business because you don't have an intellectual property right over your work. That is very important. And whenever you are evaluating a deep tech company, whether it's Indian or international, one data point you should look at is how many patents they are filing every year to secure their work. People don't look at it, but from a technology point of view, it's very important. And it doesn't take much time, but be aware of that. And the thing is, they start investing very early in the cycle, and their budgets are very high. So if you see all these Nokia, Ericsson, Huawei, and all, they invest anywhere between 15 to 20% of their sales on R&D. That means if you are making $10 billion in sales, their R&D budget is around $2 billion. So it's a huge business, and that's how it is. And from an investment point of view, it's a wonderful area to invest. But investing in technology needs a real mindset because when it depends on when you invest, you need to understand technology very well. You need to have some know-how. So, and there are no charts available. So, if you are a technical person, technical investment person who look at the chart and invest, it may become very difficult. It's almost like a venture capital investment where you really have you really have mm, a thorough knowledge of technology and its impact on the business. and different stakeholders in the business. Unless you have that idea, it's very difficult to take a call. So, any questions here?
We are good, Satish. We'll ask. You can, I mean, run us through the presentation, and then perhaps we can come to the slides and ask particular questions. And as you rightly said, you can also use whiteboard there.
Whiteboard, yeah, we'll go to the whiteboard. Basically, let's see, these are characteristics of technology company because technology companies are evolving in India. So first thing you need to understand is if somebody claims that they're a technology company, you need to see the technology budget. How much are they putting in technology, basically in the R&D? So traditionally, the R&D budget for any company that claims that they're tech companies varies between 15 to 30% of their sales. At least 20%, 15 to 20% is minimum. And a deep tech company, it may even go up. And during the initial days, the sales are low, it may be even 50 to 60% of their sales, basically. Of course, it is post VC. When they are VC, when there are no sales, they are just investing in R&D. And they produce hardware, cloud services, or mobile apps, something like the IT solutions. And their potential is very, very high because of their scalability. The moment their product is done and single sale happens, if the product is good, the way they can scale up is huge, basically, and that you can see that reflection on the stock price. And the moment you prove yourself with one of the operators or one of the customers that it is doing well, and if you're aligned politically and technically, your global reach is going to be very, very good, and you will have extensive market reach. And most of these companies, right, they are disruptive in nature, basically. For example, if you see Uber, Airbnb, Netflix, or some companies in telecom, they always try to disrupt. That's how things happen. So at least in the case of telecom, whenever we move from one generation to another generation, whereas from when we move from 3G to 4G, 4G to 5G, 5G to 6G, there are always companies who try to disrupt the existing companies and then get into business. They try to fix the gaps or fix the business model issues with those companies and try to provide a better proposition to the customers so that they can make more money. But the thing is, the high risk business, things may not work, things may work. Their R&D budgets are high. You don't know what is going to happen, but that's what it is about technology companies. But it's fun. If it clicks, if you can make money, the amount of money you can make is tremendous. For example, I'll give one example. Tejas, right? It's our own Indian company. It's a wonderful firm. It is a small firm. It is into optical networking equipment. So it was struggling, basically. It's not a high-end optical equipment firm. It's a small firm. It was languishing at around 50 to 100 rupees, right? Everybody knew it was good, but at some point of time, Indian government said that we don't want to take equipment from a Chinese company. Let me not name the company, and we want an Indian service provider for this. The last one, it's fine. Then a big uh, company took over Tejas, and it got the right R&D budget, right push, right backing. Now Tejas is growing like anything. Tejas has become a wonderful thing. I think now it is the amount of money that investors made, technical investors made, who trusted Tejas at those levels. And at least if you were tracking Tejas, you knew that Tejas being taken over by a big Indian conglomerate was a turning point. And if you had invested money in Tejas at that point of time, it would have been a wonderful, wonderful technology investment. Because the only negative that Tejas had with respect to its R&D budget and growth was resolved when the acquisition happened. So let's not get into those details. I think people here know about it, but that's how technology works. So investing in technology is very good, very difficult, but if you can master that, so nothing else. You don't need to see look at anything else. Of course, the technology that is coming now with respect to AML, they're very difficult to understand. Nobody knows what is happening. So that's about technology company. Let me go through. Then we have utility companies. So we have telecom utility companies. Basically, they are like our Bharti Airtel and Jio, who are B2C. They cater to the customer. We have B2B companies like Railtel and other, Tata Communication. They provide communication, but to the businesses, they don't deal with the end customers. Then what all they do? They manage telecommunication networks. They provide internet services. They provide data connectivity. They even provide TV services. Both Geo and Airtel provides, right? And also they provide infrastructure services. Okay, so some big utility companies have these infra services within their company, and some take the services of auxiliary companies for this infra services. So these are another big thing. So both technology companies and utility companies in the telecom ecosystem are conglomerates. They are very, very big. So the biggest telecom vendor like Nokia and Ericsson, their market valuation even at the distress levels could be around 25 to 30 billion dollars. And the operators, even in a country like India, where the revenues are not less, the PEs are high, is about 100 120 billion dollars. In the US, like Verizon Wireless, they trade at 180 to 190 billion dollars as of now. They are huge, and they are meant to be huge. And the rule of thumb is they should be much bigger than any of the vendors. Then the moment as an operator you are smaller than your vendor, you lose the bargaining power. So before 2014 in India, we did not have a big operator who can pull right strings from the technology vendors and make sure the technology vendors work in operators' favor. That started happening, and we are seeing the effect now. So we have two huge telecom companies that are around 10 lakh crore market cap, doing around 1.5 lakhs to 2 lakh crore revenue. Let's leave out profitability that will happen. From a revenue point of view, they are really building the scale. So it's just a matter of time before we show profitability in a decent way. Of course, profitability in case of utility companies won't stay in 15, 16%. They are 10 to 12% companies. So it will stay there. But their scalability is very high. So the 12% is on huge revenue that we need to check. So don't expect companies like Airtel or Digital to, Geo to run with 15 to 20% operating margin. It doesn't happen. So the EBITDA may be around 10 to 12%, or even less than that. That's the nature of company. Otherwise, government may come out with something to share revenue with them. So that we need to understand. That is one salient aspect of utility companies. Then we have auxiliary service providers. So we have the technology providers who provide technology to operators. Operators need a lot of support, right? They need support from tower companies to install the towers. Then they need support from a lot of installation service providers to lay the cables, to do the survey, all those things. Then we need the O&M companies, operation management companies that monitor the network, that do whatever is required to monitor the towers, to monitor the fiber optic cable network, everything, right? It is a day-to-day work. You need separate companies for that. Then we have auxiliary equipment providers in the form of the SFP dongles, or in the form of generators, cables, connectors. It's a huge ecosystem. They're all small companies. Either they import and provide equipment to all these biggies, or they manufacture by themselves. So manufacturing by themselves is still at a very nascent stage in India, but it will happen with India building size in the ecosystem. It's just a matter of time before we'll have some decent technology companies and auxiliary equipment providers in our country. So that's where it is. So how it works basically, as I was telling. So if you see, right, there are I try to put the complete thought process in this slide. The timeline when that activity starts, where generation will be 5G or 4G, and what is the criticality. So criticality means I is a reverse order. So the bottom one is more critical, And whenever you go top, it becomes less critical to the business. Okay. Oh, there's a typo. Sorry. The standards and specifications are more critical. That defines how things go. Then the technology service providers like Nokia and all they come. Then once it is done, the operators come here. The timeline they start after with respect to the trials and other stuff. They start and they implement. Then once they are through, government comes into picture with again after standards with the spectrum auction and policy. Then once it is done, the technology sales and capex start happening. Then we get all the passive companies like tower companies and other stuff. Then once everything is done, we have the small service companies. This is how things work basically. So every line has its own ecosystem and own cycles. So we need to be very clear about how to understand a cycle. So telecom is more ecosystem you need to understand. It's evolution. It's not a cycle, unlike other businesses. So in this evolution, some new companies come and then some old companies die. If you see, after every evolution, you would have seen some technology provider going bust, being acquired by existing technology provider, or a new technology provider coming into picture in a different way. That serves the purpose. So that is the rule of the game. So maybe after 4G, we lost some technology service provider like Alcatel-Lucent being acquired by Nokia. Maybe in the end of 5G, anything can happen. If something is not working out, something may work out. But 5G is still in progress. But like that, some disruptions happen. So that's how it is. But the only thing is, these operators usually stay. They are the utility companies. The biggest moat or the biggest revenue earners in this whole ecosystem is operators. So operators is has a long-lasting legacy, and they will be in the business for quite some time. If they're making money, it's good. It's good for everyone. Then of course government stays. Government has a long-lasting role to play here with respect to spectrum allocation and policy. Then we have technology sales and capex that is going to happen. That capex has its own cycle, and every the capex cycle or the equipment cycle, the life cycle, if you see here, if Bharti buys an equipment, it is expected to keep it for 7 to 10 years. If I buy a board or a base station equipment, it is expected to stay in the environment. The hardware is expected to work for 7 to 10 years. Means if you see the capex cycle, if the auction happened in 2022 or 23, the, the capex is going to peak in 2024 and it will come back to normal. Suppose if they're spending 200 billion rupees every year, in the peak capex cycle, it may become 300 to 400 billion rupees basically. And of course, Bharti's turnover is 1.2 trillion, right? Annually. They make that much revenue. So they have to spend more time. That time, everything looks expensive. But once the revenue increases and the capex cycle subsides for operator, their profitability starts looking good. Then, yeah, as telling passive companies with respect to towers and other stuff, that's fine. There are so many small companies. They're in the small cap or SME space that keep coming and going. So that's where it is. Okay. Then what happens? It's very important, right? This is something that we need to understand. So maybe if you are reading newspapers, it always says spectrum auction happened, we are doing something. So this is the basic ingredient for any telecom company. Like for a real estate company, land is the basic ingredient, right? For a telecom company, for a wireless telecom company, excuse me, the basic ingredient is spectrum. So having adequate spectrum provides any operator to scale up or provide a economical service to the end user. That is very important. So the spectrum happens at different levels. So from a physics point of view or technology point of view, less than 1 gigahertz, let's say 600 megahertz, 800 megahertz, 700 megahertz, and 900 megahertz, they are lower bands. So these bands are used for 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. And there is a band where the frequency is 1 gigahertz, 2.6 gigahertz. They were used for 5G, 4G, 3G, and 2G. So if you see, till 2.6, it was being used by LTE in India. Till 2.6, we have equipment that are being used. When it came to 5G, we have 3.5 to 6 gigahertz that is used for 4G and 5G. Then we have something very high, that is 2.4 gig to 40 gig. It is only used for 5G. So this is very important to understand. And when you see what happened, when the 5G auction happened last time, Reliance bid in this band 800. They spent around 88 billion, I think, 88,000 crores for auction, basically. They bought spectrum worth 88,000 crores, and Bharti also bought spectrum worth 60,000 crores, if I'm not wrong, 56 to 60,000 crores. That's the amount of money that operators allocate towards spectrum, because without spectrum, you can't do anything. Everything else is of no use. So Reliance bought some spectrum at this level, some spectrum at this level, some spectrum here, and some spectrum to help them. Okay. Maybe let me just go through one slide. How do you want to impact, basically? If you see here, if see lower the frequency, higher the coverage range, basically. Suppose if you are working at 600 megahertz, that was used for GSM, you can cover, say, up to 40 kilometers, right? When you come to 700 megahertz, the maximum coverage, the best possible case is 86%. Means if you want to provide the same kind of coverage with 700 megahertz, means you need to have more towers, right? It looks like this. With I'm just taking this example just to see. We have this much number of towers with lesser frequency. When you move to the higher frequency, number of towers increase. So when operator starts working at 700 megahertz, it is only 86% of cell coverage compared to 600 megahertz, means you need to invest more. When it moves to 800 megahertz, it is 71% of 600 megahertz. When it moves to 2 gigahertz, it's 30% of 600 megahertz. When it moves to 2.5 gigahertz, it's 24%. When it moves to 3.7 gigahertz, the C band, it is in 5G, it is 17% related to 600 megahertz. When we move to millimeter wave, it is 2%. Means the amount of infra and technology complexity and the investment that you need increases exponentially when you start buying spectrum at higher frequency. This you need to understand. The question is, why would operator buys higher frequency auctions and acquires higher frequency when the operating range reduces drastically? This is a question, right? That you need to understand. This is what happens, basically. This is not there. Did I put a slide? Okay, it's not there. So what happens is, even though we have coverage here, the data throughput, what you're going to get at lower frequency is very, very less. If you want a decent data experience, you should be operating at higher frequency. That's why if you see, right, if you go to a tier 2 or tier 3 town, even if they claim it is 5G, it shows full signal on your laptop, on your mobile. But the download speeds are pathetic. They're not good. But if you go to, say, a good metro like Bangalore or Delhi or Bombay, automatically the download speeds are high. That is because in these metros, the operators would have invested more equipment at 2.5 and 3.7 gigahertz. They don't mind investing more money because they have more revenue. But if you are going to a tier 2 or tier 3 city, they usually work at 800 and max 2.5, not even at 3.7 gigahertz. Very few 3.7 gigahertz, because you have to invest a lot of money, and your revenue realization is not great there. But at the same time, every citizen has a basic right towards these services. To do that, either if you go to a very small village kind of thing, they may be operating at 800 megahertz. That's why if you see, even in every auction, they buy 800 megahertz. so that they can provide coverage. And in the future, whenever the economy of that place increases, they move from 800 megahertz to higher frequency, like 2.5 and or 3.7. That's how the economy works. So just observe the auction pattern. The frequency, the C-band frequency, what we call 2.5 and 3.7 gigahertz, are very, very expensive in economically affluent circles. So if you want to acquire a spectrum in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Mumbai, or Delhi circle, you really need to pay a premium compared to what you have in Bihar or some other area, because there is an economic consideration and people want to acquire that. So that's where it is. And if you see, I just told these 2.5 gigahertz, which is 3.3, look at the number of towers that are going to increase. And trust me, when we reach millimeter wave, 25 gigahertz and above, you need one tower every 500 meters. Right now, we have a tower every 2 to 3 kilometers with 3.3. But when we move to millimeter wave, it will be less than 500 meters. Maybe we'll have one tower every 200 meters or 300 meters. So, excuse me, that's how it is. So I'm just explaining theory so that when we move to the whiteboard session, we'll have enough information. And what India happened, right? I just brought it up so that it makes things very interesting. It goes back to standards. So when the standards were defining rural connectivity, right? India was not present. They were not at least the cycle, or for whatever reason, they didn't get right participation in the standards. The rural connectivity standards that were defined for 5G initially were considering a European village, European rural area. And Indian rural area something sometimes look like this. We have a Gram Panchayat. We have so many small villages in and around, and people staying in these villages don't roam around. They will be roaming around in this area. So what India wanted, the government is, I'll put a huge, powerful tower in the Gram Panchayat, and using the BharatNet initiative, where it is funded by government, I'll put a optical, I'll provide the optical connectivity to provide the mobile connectivity to all the villages in and around. Right? This is what India trying to push. It is called limited mobility, large cell. We want a mega cell that provides different thing, but it has its own challenges. But they couldn't push. That's how India decided. I want a 5G Indian standard. So somehow still, even after that complete push, this one is not part of the common standards. They still agreed because of because for political reasons, but still it is part of 5G India standards. This is one of the few standards that we have in 5G for India, where this is how the government policy comes into picture, right? How government pushes standards. Government was very clear. I want mobile connectivity to everyone. If you want me to use the standards that define rural connectivity, instead of one tower, I'll have multiple towers here. Maybe one tower for this village, 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 because your the European definition of village contains only a sparsely distributed people, a distributed human settlement with a few hundred people, less than that. In India, is not like that. We have densely populated people who are centered around a marketplace or a gram panchayat kind of thing. They want mobility. So this has a lot of technological implementation, because your mobiles need to be modified, because if when the distance increases here, when it goes beyond 6 kilometer, I'm talking physics here, you need more power here, and means your equipment need to be designed for a better range, and your RF radio frequency characteristics are going to change. You need to handle it in a different way, and mobiles, whatever villages are going to use for these standards, their battery power should be good, so it doesn't get drained out. So this is something that's going to happen more frequently for 6G. So what happens is, when this happens, Excuse me. When this happens, since the standards are driven by India, they're contributed by Indian companies. Definitely, this they try to secure their technological advantage in their own way, and at least in this crux of things, we may have some beautiful Indian companies coming up here. So it may go either way, but is an opportunity for our country basically. This is how it goes. Let me go to next slide. Operators basically, right? So we are very good here. We have become off late. We have become very good. So for vendors, it's a pain selling to India because they don't make revenue, but it runs their factories. The kind of volume that India provides is so good. So it's just a matter of time because they are forced to provide India equipment at a low margin price, but they get volume. So since it's a monthly billing thing, it's a wonderful cash flow generator. It is before they did not have, but as and when the operators are getting experience, they are moving from one generation to another generation. They are managing the capex very well. It was evident with respect to the way Geo and Airtel manage the 5G capital expenditure. It's beautiful. Just check their capex in the last 3 years. It's wonderful. And India has one of is one of the countries where 5G penetration is almost 40%. Europe is 20%, China is 60, 70%, I think. US is 40%. We are doing extremely well. But if you see the capex that is being done, it's wonderful. And OPEX is also going to be good because our operators are doing extremely well. Then, so whatever we have done till now is migrating. The operators are still trying to migrate users from 4G to 5G, but it's still a mystery how 5G optimization is going to happen. But this is a priority. People may not tell that, but there are some features that are coming in that are already available in 5G that may make 5G optimization easy. But again, it's a political issue how they are going to do that. But at this point of time, we can understand and appreciate that optimi 5G monetization is not optimization, sorry, it's a monetization. 5G monetization for operators is a challenge, and they will do it. And for all the investors, revenue sharing with government is always a hot topic for operators. They ask you for more money for the spectrum you're auctioning. They say the floor price is too high. If we pay that much price in an auction, our ability to invest in technology becomes less. It sucks all our money towards spectrum. We won't be able to pay anything. Please keep the floor price less, they say. Then they were supposed to pay money upfront, but now with the new policy, they can pay that money over a period of 20 years, I think. And also, that is one part. And also, since they are using spectrum, they need to share a portion of their revenue, not the profit, with the government. That is called SUC, spectrum usage fee or something. So that is around 3 to 5%. There's always a contentious topic. So how do you consider as revenue? These operators say, hey, my revenue is what I get from the pure wireless operations. Don't consider the rent, what I get. Don't consider interest as my revenue. That's where the contention is. The famous judgment that went against operator last week, right? Last week or 10 days. It clearly highlights the fact that this revenue sharing with government is always running. And this is where the policy comes into picture. I think something will happen here. But this is one more thing that you need to take care. And whenever you are talking about sorry, operator revenue. So there's a magic number called ARPU. It is average revenue per user. So this you need to keep as and when the ARPU increases, there would be a significant jump in the operator revenue because it's the money that they make from every user, the average money. So right now the Indian ARPU is around 200 rupees, 190 to 200 rupees, if I'm not wrong. It was hovering around 120, 130, 140. 2 to 3 years back. Now it is around 200. So it's going to increase. So with 5G, they should be able to do some magic and do that. And one more thing is, this is where the conflict comes. I try to capture it. I don't want to talk more about it. Basically, here in 4G, right, there was no differential pricing support for technology available. So let me give an example. So if you, suppose there are two cities like Bangalore and Mysore, there is only one highway available. And if the government's mandate is that every citizen should be able to use it, irrespective of which vehicle they use, whether it is a car or a bullock cart or a two-wheeler or a bicycle, and you should charge same, then it becomes unviable, right? Then you have to design your network to cater to everyone. That means it should be designed for the best user. Means unless you design your road for a car, it becomes bad business. So your planning is always done for the worst possible case. You cannot say that when there is a fair, the road is chock block and no car can move. At the same time, in the case of telecom, telecom systems, unlike other systems, are always designed for worst possible cases. So it always looks like over provisioned system, but that's what it is. So in the case of 4G, it was over provisioned, and there was no way they can segregate users based on the usage. So it had to allocate the same kind of resources for a person who is watching a YouTube and to a person who is just checking mails. Both have different usage patterns, different resource requirement, but there was no way it was possible from a operations point of view and a technology point of view. But there is a possibility to have it in 5G and beyond. Means if operators somehow monetize this and use it and take the government on their side so that everybody's interest is taken care of, there may be a huge differential pricing coming in 5G that in turn push the operator. For example, if somebody wants to use the 5G connection to watch HD video, he may be charged some money that is significantly higher than a person who just wants to watch the video with the normal standard definition resolution. But if that person who is watching the movie in a SD format wants to watch it in HD, he has to pay extra. So that technical possibility is coming in 5G. So that may be a boon, but we don't know. My guess is as good as your guess when it's going to happen, how it is going to happen. But technology wise, we may get that support. So that's where operators business is there, and this is a long lasting business, and it's growing good. I'm happy with this business. Then I just wanted to take this, not my thing. I just for some of these I just pulling it out. In the case of in 2024, Bharti made this much revenue. It is expected to reach 2.128, means almost 30-40% extra revenue. And if you see the change, year on year change is around 10% they are expecting by 2027. Take it with a pinch of salt. I've drawn this slide to show that in the future, the operators will start generating more revenue. Profitability, I don't know. Hopefully, they'll start generating more profitability, net income profitability, everything may increase. But the point is, it's a growing business. It's going to grow. That's why maybe the Bharti share, I know how much it is running that. It should be decent. Right? But people have sensed it, right? It's a good business, a decent business where big money can be parked and they can expect a decent growth. So I just took this as a indicative slide, but the same thing may be true for Reliance Geo. So if the operator is strong with a decent revenue and strong mode, they're expected to grow. And one thumb rule, maybe okay, wonderful. This is the last slide. I'll go. One thumb rule is that The operator's market cap as revenue should be significantly bigger than any of the vendors. That's how things work. That's how the negotiations work. If you are smaller than your vendor, the vendor is going to eat you. They won't offer you a proportional service. But if you are big, then you may force your vendor, whether it is a technology vendor or a tower vendor, to uh, have some services that are favorable to you with respect to cost and technology evolution. Other than cost, one more thing is, say all these technology companies are investing 20% of their sales on R&D. How do you make sure as an operator that their R&D investment is in your interest? How do you make sure that the R&D or the features what they're developing every year is for your benefit? So that happens only when you are big, when you're generating revenue, when you're giving good business. So you should make sure that by the sheer virtue of your size, you are in the top 5 or 6 customers so that they prioritize your requirement in the R&D. That's the only way. From that aspect, the Indian operators are growing in size. It is going to happen, and we'll have nice ecosystem being developed around them. Yeah, that's where it is. Prince, I think I'm done with the slides. Maybe I should go with. Then we'll go through the ecosystem and uh, slides. Is that fine?
Oh,
I'll open the
yeah,
mic.
yeah, perfect. Right. And meanwhile, our audience, just in case any questions, they can simply type in the chat or they can raise your hand so that no two people are speaking at one point in time. So, Satish, before we go to that, some basic questions, as in like telecom as a sector has been seen majorly as a sector wherein it's very difficult to make money. That's the general perception. I mean, I could be wrong on that, but majority of people
But
wherein
they did make
I
money,
come
right?
across.
That's true.
Yeah,
That is true. But who
right.
is telling that? They need to understand. Who said that the telecom is very difficult to make money? An American investor always says that I put so much money, the long gestation thing, but I need to operate at 10 to 12%. Instead, if the same money is put in Google, their growth and operating margins are very high. And in India, if you come, the person says it's very difficult to invest in telecom. They were right because when they made that statement, telecom was in a pathetic shape. The operator revenue was not there. There was so much skew with respect to spectrum fees and the payments. The revenue was not there. They were operating at 120 rupees, 130 rupees ARPU, and the number of vendors were less. So everything started changing after 2014 when Geo disrupted everything. After that, if you see the revenues are increasing by 10 to 15% every year, at least 10% every year. In terms of the ARPU or number of users, I think number of users will saturate at some point of time. But with 5G, you will have more options with respect to non-human devices like IoT or Internet of Devices, what we call, where when you start providing mobile connectivity, data connectivity to machines, so it's going to be very big. So that's one use case for 5G, and when that happens, definitely operator revenue is going to increase.
And we are seeing a lot of chatter about the BSNL, MTNLs, and revival of Vodafone Idea for that matter. I mean, the disruption happened and we saw consolidation. So, how you see, I mean, in line with the government's policy, these are something which is seeing real structural changes for turnarounds, or it's I mean, that is, you have a different view to that.
Right. See, in my personal take, maybe I'm not an expert at all. Having only two major operators for a country like India is always risky, right? For a country of 1.4 billion people, only two operators is not good. At some point of time, when they become very big, it may become very difficult to uh, alter their roadmap that is aligned to country's interest. If they say no, what will government have? And how can government influence the technology or influence some companies within India? So we have Vodafone Idea. It's a wonderful operator, but they have their own promoter issues. Basically, it's not a technology issue. Even if you see the spectrum auction, they auction, but unless the promoters and the investment is aligned, the company is going to stay that way. But my gut feel is that they still have the spectrum. The basic ingredient is still there. They participated in all the auctions, and there are chances that they may revive and come out as a third operator. And as far as BSNL is concerned, BSNL is a different story, right? At this point of time, when Bharti or Reliance Jio buys the equipment, usually they try to prioritize what is good for their business, right? They don't have anything else. If government says try to buy Make in India product, they try to obey that, no doubt, but they're still their priorities bringing up the network faster and making it work. But when you have an operator like BSNL, that would be a vehicle for government to push in-house technologies. If you see when BSNL announced, many companies started showing up. Like some small equipment vendor says, "Hey, I am doing it for BSNL. BSNL is installing towers. Okay, I'll provide service to them." Government says, "I'm coming with India Stack for LTE. For 4G, we are developing our own India Stack and we are doing trials with BSNL. And BSNL is going to run with India specific solution." So my personal take is we need BSNL kind of companies, whether they have spectrum, but they are wonderful vehicles to implement and develop India specific technology. And once that is done, once we get decent confidence, maybe other mainline operators like Bharti, Jio, and Vodafone Idea may follow suit, and we may have our own telecom technology ecosystem. Other, it would be very difficult, right? How do you experiment so much? We have only two operators. We are serving 1 billion people. Can I experiment my network with this technology, with experimentation technology? It's very difficult, right? So my gut feel is that it is happening that way. And Vodafone Idea is an investment proposal. It is nothing to do with technology. They have a screwed up investment. The promoters need to get their act right. If they don't invest, then it doesn't work. Either they need to bring some other investor to invest money, let go their stake, or the company is going to stay like that. And they cannot blame government for their woes fully. Of course, there may be some argument, that's fine, but that's where it is.
Right. So Narendra has one question in the comments. Patents filed could be one of the metrics for the Indian IT services or tech companies of the likes LTTS and KPIT. Any views on that?
Yes, they need to. Technology company, the soul is the patent. Otherwise, if you have developed something without patent, some other company may copy your product and in an economical way and throw you out of business. The only way to secure your business is through patents for a technology company. And the value of a technology company comes through patents along with their revenue and business model. So you have to watch out for patents.
Right. So Sagar has another question. Why did all telecom operators go out of business after Jio came in 2014? Why only Airtel survived?
Who
What
was there
went
before?
wrong? Sorry.
Who was there before? Everybody started going out, right? All the small companies were taken over or shut down. We need to understand how things happened, basically. In 2008, when the 2G spectrum auction happened, it was done in a different way, where people who did not have any idea about technology, who did not have deep pockets, entered the business. Like somebody who is running a small operations, he got the spectrum in some way at a very cheap price. That too, he did not have to pay the government right away. He was a small person. What he did is he went to an operator or a technology vendor, and he took a partnership with, say, a European operator like Telenor, or a Russian operator like MTS. They provide technical know-how about how to run the telecom operations, like operator business. Then they got equipment on credit from the vendors, and it was run like a trading business. How do you expect them to take the country forward? That's the reason all those companies had to shut down. When the rules changed, they couldn't survive, basically. There was no skin in the game for them. It was more a arbitrage game for them. That was one of the reasons. So now, since these people have become big, they have skin in the game. That's my answer. Maybe there are other reasons also. But now the operators need to increase. But operator business has a huge entry barrier. So the only best chance for India is to have four operators right now. That means B2C operators. I'm not talking about B2B operators. There are few B2B operators that provide mm, services to the businesses, like private 5G or private LTE, that need not be from these companies. Like, for example, Adani may provide private LTE to some companies.
So, follow-up question on this. Any specific KPIs or things to look for in this sector is
Which for operators,
yes.
okay. For the operators, there are two things. One is the revenue, total revenue, or ARPU you need to look for. How is ARPU doing? And what is their capex? And what is the deal cycle? It's how much capex they are spending, what is the percentage with respect to the revenue, and what is the ARPU. So ARPU is a single magic number to look at the revenue thing, but that is not sufficient. You need to follow some news with respect to the the capex they are spending on different aspects. Since it is an evolving business, right? They keep investing on new things. They keep buying technology, and you need to assess what is the impact on technology. For example, right? If you just look at ARPU, you may never get an idea. But if you just go through the 5G use cases and see what's the possibility for 5G monetization for these operators and get an idea, then you can map it to the ARPU increase. And once the ARPU increases, even if we assume the similar uh, numbers, means the subscribers, the revenue is going to increase. Of course, at any point of time, you can go with a safe assumption that their profitability won't cross 10 to 15%. 15% is very high. It's going to be little lesser than that. Don't expect it to have EBITDA of 15% plus. It won't happen. It's a low margin business, but it's a huge volume.
All right. So Mani Inderpal has a question. He's asking, what is your view in Starlink operating in India and its impact on Indian players? Secondly, how do you see Indus Towers doing from now with all conditions being constant?
Maybe the second question, I'll take it up when we go for whiteboard, Prince. That should be okay, right? I'll do that. Starlink is interesting. Starlink also uses spectrum, right? It is a satellite communication, and that's where the disparity comes into picture. In the case of 5G, a spectrum that is allocated for operators to work in 5G. Of course, the Starlink and 5G, they operate in high frequency band, but the spectrum fee for satellite communication where Starlink operates is way lesser compared to the auction spectrum. That's where the disparity comes into picture. So Starlink can operate with a low investment on spectrum, whereas the normal operators need to pay more for the spectrum. That's where the contention is. But at this point of time, I don't know why Starlink would be used by all the normal end users, but Starlink as a connectivity may be used by the operators to provide connectivity to their base stations, where in locations where they're not able to draw a optic fiber cable to the base station.
So another question is from Sagar. Is this sector too dependent on policies and regulations? How can it benefit an investor given the change in government policy?
It's a way of life for these people, right? Your business is serving 1.4 billion people. So you cannot say that the policy will favor me at the cost of people. So the policy is always to make sure that people are getting benefited. But the issue was with respect to Indian telecom or even the world telecom was that government was seeking too much in advance. For example, Geo bid for 88,000 crore spectrum, right? Once you bid for 88,000 crore spectrum, after that you need to invest in the technology, you need to build the technology, and after doing all those things, you don't know whether you're going to make money in 5G. So how does government make sure that Geo gets enough long rope to sell their business and make it profitable? Same time, they don't believe they have enough money left for investment. So, so there are some positive changes. Just go through the policy document of 2023, I think. Yeah, 23. Yeah, last year we had a nice draft policy in 2022. Just go through them. You'll find that the revenue sharing and the spectrum fee sharing policy with the government is amended, and people seem to be very happy. At least they have money left for investment. At the same time, they don't have too much pressure to pay. Of course, this last week's Supreme Court judgment was a little detrimental to operators, but Sagar, that is going to stay that way in one way or the other. So they have to deal with it. There is no permanent solution for that.
And Satish, on the R&D expenses, I mean, of all the companies within the value chain, so how one should I mean, view those expenses in line of, I mean, when it comes to investing, from investing point of view, rather. So the cost of R&D, and as you were explaining during the
Their P looks very
conversation,
high, right? Their P looks very high. Their expenses look very high. You need to check where those expenses are. If they're investing too much on R&D and the sales are yet to pick up, their revenue is less, their profits are less, their expenses are more. If the expenses are more because of R&D budget, means they're investing a little decent money in that. If the R&D budget is less and if it is high PG, then you need to be suspicious about that.
right? And
Ideally, it should be high. Yeah.
of the tower companies, as you said, with an increase in frequency, there are more
Hmm.
number of towers being required. So
Yes.
going forward, do you believe these tailwinds are going to help big time as far as the tower
Yes. Yes.
companies
Yes.
are
Yes.
concerned, be it the
Hmm.
Indus Tower or companies of the likes of Soyog Telematics, etc.?
Hmm. Maybe I'll take that before we do that, right? Let me start the whiteboard. So, you are seeing my desktop? No, right? You are still seeing my slides, I think. Let me share my,
I can see you whiteboard. Yeah, we can
you
see
can see
that.
my whiteboard? Okay, wonderful. Let me do that. I'll just write the block diagram. We'll go one by one. Okay, okay. This, pardon me for by this thing. This is a subscriber. Okay, this is a mobile. We'll just put here. Okay, this is a mobile user. I'll put a line here. So it's a different ecosystem. We don't have any say here. Then comes, we have tower, right? Pardon me for my this thing. I'm just drawing so that it's ugly drawing. We have tower, and from here It is radio. Okay. One thing, this auction, spectrum auction is a very complicated process. It's a continuous process. And there are companies who just help the government to do auction. They are listed. Maybe go and search. So the real estate space in India starts from auction. So there are auction companies in India that help the government in auction, e-auction of the spectrum of all the auctions. That is a decent business, and usually it happens that way. Now, the mobile, if they want to access the operator network that is on the right side of this line, the first thing is tower. Okay, you need to understand what is this tower. So if you go through the towers, what is a tower? Tower is a physical infra that hosts all the radio equipment, basically. So physical infra means is a steel structure, right? As of now, what we see is a steel structure, and it has antennas mounted on this. Then we'll have a small enclosure here under the tower. We call if you go there, where they place a generator, some equipment, other stuff. Then we'll choose a color. I forget about it. Then we have enclosure. Then all those things. So these tower companies are not technology companies. You need to understand. Tower companies are passive service providers. So what do? They once a location is finalized by the operator, like for Airtel says, okay, since it's RF radio frequency, you cannot simply put this tower wherever you want. It has to be placed appropriately. And somehow Airtel, through their tests and survey, they found a location. Okay, it has to be placed in this location. They tell the tower company, hey, I want a tower to be installed. It can be um, either Indus or Suyo or GTL or any tower company. So they go there, they negotiate with the landowner, fix up a rent, and they hire a contractor and get this metal thing involved. Then they will provide a power source that is a diesel or something. They put an enclosure, put all the equipment. There ends their responsibility. That's it. It is not a technology company, you need to understand. And they charge certain things to all the operators, some money to the operators, maybe 20,000 or 30,000, something like that. And they make money per month, basically. They charge that much to the operator per month. And it's a rental business for them. And they and in the whole business, they make decent profit, you need to understand. But they have their own set of headaches. And also, these tower companies can have more than one tenant. They can host both Airtel and Geo here. Sorry, both Airtel and Geo here. Or in the future, if the location is good, they may even host BSNL. So the tower can be a multi-tenant thing, and based on the number of tenants they need to have adequate infra with respect to the power source and other stuff, security, power source, and other business. Yeah, and one more thing, when the operating frequency increases, you would require a lot of towers. At this point of time, India has around 500,000 plus towers. But when everything moves to when an Indian economy improves and the need for high throughput data increases, this may at least double or triple in the near future. So the number of towers in India is going to increase drastically. And when we move to higher frequency like millimeter wave, the towers may not look like this. It may look more like a uh, pole. Maybe it is like this. Maybe let me share and show you. It may look like this. You're seeing this is a monopole tower. Whereas a normal telecom tower looks like this. They look like this, right? This is what you see. But when you move to 5G at a high frequency, they won't be like this. They would be like whatever I showed now. They won't be even this tall. This monopole tower, as of now, it's just hosting the radio equipment. But when we move to 5G, when it is a monopole, it will have radio, it will have a decent power source that is eco-friendly. Maybe they will have a solar power. Then it will have a CCTV. It will have a surveillance equipment. It may be even a light pole that is on the street. That's how things are working. Wherever the Verizon, when they have installed their 5G, because Verizon is the only operator in the world, in the US, that has uh, auctioned 25 gig. That means they need tower every 300 meters. So they have done a deal with the government that they install towers as street lights. They provide that infra. They will host the radio equipment. That street light, that tower will have a street light, a CCTV camera, and other surveillance equipment along with radio. So that's wonderful. So that's how it is. It's a multifunctional tower. And with that being the case, where did I go?
So one question from Jayesh he's asking, is CRAN, which is Cloud Radio Access Network, not deployed in India?
No, no.
Hi,
I don't know where it is deployed. Cloud Run is simple, right?
yeah, yeah. So because it will reduce the tower cost, operating cost by removing so many equipments associated with the tower, equipments like generators and lots of FPGA based support for the processing of the DSP related processing at the tower side. So lots of that will be eliminated by CRAN, but I'm not sure whether that will
That was
be
a theory, Jayesh, basically. That
okay.
with Cloud RAN, everything going to work, but no company has done. We have around 512 operators in the world, basically. Throughout the world, if you count, including
Uh-huh.
small and big operators, we have around 512, out of which not more than 5 to 6 are even trying Cloud RAN, basically.
Okay.
So they were expecting something big with 5G, but it is a non-starter at this point of time. So it
Okay.
has so many operation issues. They're not getting the right performance with respect to Cloud RAN. Maybe for
Okay.
other people who are interested, cloudification means instead of using the custom equipment that are spread all across, cloudification happens where you are hosting your software only solution in the cloud, and using non-specific equipment. That way, the operators will get a cost advantage and they are not bound to buy the hardware equipment from telecom vendors like Nokia and Ericsson. They can just go to Taiwan, get all the servers ordered, install, and ask these telecom vendors like Nokia and Ericsson to install their software there, so that it will provide the advantages with respect to CapEx and OpEx. But Jayesh, unfortunately, that is not flying at this point of time.
Okay. So how many companies are, is any company like Nokia, Ericsson is actually working on CRAN or they've just,
They are working. The investment is happening R&D wise, but the traction is not there with respect to sales.
okay.
Already 5G deployment is happening, right? In
Mhm.
another year, the trials are already done. It's only a matter of when the companies are going to place orders. Even
Mhm.
see the millimeter wave, the 25 gig and above, only US and Korea have auctioned. Nobody else. India has auctioned only till 3.3 gig. India hasn't even started trials for higher frequency where you need a lot of antenna, because operator need to be ready with their money. The technology service providers should be ready with their money, with their equipment. The trial should happen. Then only government auctions those frequencies. If the
Okay.
operator is not ready, the government is going to auction. Only two countries have auctioned till now, and China maybe. Only three countries have auctioned higher frequency, and
Mhm.
that's where it is, basically.
So, by the way, who will benefit most by this deployment of Siren? Is it the telecom tower companies or network providers?
Tower company is a passive company, no? What is
Uh-huh.
technology in tower? Tower company is just a landlord, that's providing a building. They don't
Mhm.
provide anything. They just provide a building. That's all. It is like renting a building in a location. That's about it.
Okay.
The office is run by operators, right? When the cloud run happens, the biggest beneficiary is the operator. Cloud
Mhm.
run is an initiative run by the operators. That's why they are the technology vendors are not very enthusiastic about it. The existing technology vendors. If
Mhm.
you see the technology landscape, the people, the companies who are putting a lot of money in developing cloudified solutions for telecom are new companies. They are more convinced, like Mavenir and Rakuten. The existing companies are really putting honest effort, but somehow the technology is not stable, whatever is the reason.
Thanks for this.
So Satish, although more or less you have explained that, but for the benefit of our audience, I mean, throughout the value chain, how you will give priority from an investment point of view, that say if there are five portions within the value chain, and we have
Ah,
to rate them basis on one, two, three, four, or so, right? So
mm,
one stands for wherein if somebody invests, majority of profit pool lies in that, and in that order, right?
mm.
So your, I mean, company names, of course, is not needed, or you may simply say that our audience are smart enough to take this from an education point of view alone, and by no means it could be buy sell recommendation, just an individual opinion about him. He may reserve the right to be wrong, but again, the idea is to share on education front. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'll do that basically. You see, if you see the ecosystem here, right? Basically, see for any investor, the longevity of the company is very important. How long the company can survive. See, if the company survives, it's assumed that they are going to make money. That is a basic assumption with which the investors go. So, from a longevity point of view, that the big money ideally should get into the operator companies, but don't expect big returns. Basically, whatever happened recently, right? Bharti moved from 400 plus to I don't know what is the price now. It is 1,000 rupees, 1,200. How much is Bharti Airtel right now? Usually, I don't check. I have decent money put in there at around 400, 500 rupees. I don't know what is the price right now. I know it's going to do well. I mean, check.
It's
So that
1673, almost 1700.
oh, is it? Oh my goodness, I didn't know it's moved up so much. So I bought it when it was nothing. I know the company is going to survive. Whether it's going to make money or not, I don't know. So so the money that needs decent growth. I don't want a flamboyant company, but I want decent growth and at some point of capital preservation. So, from a longevity point of view, operators may survive. Of course, they have their own challenges. Then the tower companies are going to do well because in the changing landscape, as I said, when they are going to put more 5G infra, if that is going to continue, they would need more towers, and all these existing tower companies may benefit. And as I was telling, right, when you move from 2.5 to 3.3 gigahertz, 3.3 is what being auctioned for 5G recently, and operators have bought a decent amount of spectrum for this. When they move that, all these tower companies are going to see good traction. The only thing is their payment prices, but that they will resolve. That is more a business issue. But again, these companies are longevity, like operators. Means you cannot simply come and replace a tower company unless it is a takeover candidate. So, but of course, you need to segregate. Like for example, in case of tower company, we have uh, Indus, we have Suyo, and we have so many other small companies that provide. But any of these companies, you need to understand the size and the area where they are operating. But from a they have decent tailwind, and that is top two. Then we have technology companies. Technology companies, when the technology is proven and it is adapted by one of the operators, then there is a positive thing for them, basically. Then it's going to scale up very fast, very, very fast. That you need to pick it up. We have very few technology companies in India. Maybe if you don't look at uh, radio side, but if you just look at the optical side that connects tower to other parts of the telecom infrastructure, that is through optical cable, we have Tejas that is going to play a decent role. It's going to sustain and the company will survive, and with the amount of backing they have, they may even grow. Because at this point of time, Tejas is valued around 10 to 14,000 crores, if I'm not wrong. And the biggest player in the industry is Sienna for optical, and they are valued at around 60 or 70,000 crores, around $10 billion. Tejas is around 1.5 billion. Sienna is 10 billion. And if Tejas improves, they may catch up. And if they work on their portfolio through acquisitions or real R&D, and if government continues its support to local companies in the form of Make in India or PLI, some magic may happen to those companies, because they just somehow is able to crack the puzzle with respect to the investment. Technology always is crazy. Anything can happen there. And other than that, there are some, but of course, technology then happen. Other thing, if you see all these things right now, there were so many SME IPOs that happened, right, of late. Like we have Core Digital, Bondada, Bondada, or what is that? Then we have Frog Cellsat. They claim telecom companies. Just observe what they are doing. So they're all providing services to these tower companies. What they do, they say, I got 400 crore order. What do you do? I dig the ground, lay the cable, and hand it over. How much is the money? Okay, for their size, is a very, very decent revenue, and that definitely increases. But is it a long-term game? I'm not sure. That we need to understand the company and take a bet. But that is one kind of this that is going to thrive, where providing services to these tower companies and telecom companies with respect to the RF planning means somebody need to help operators like Bharti and Geo to identify the right locations to put their towers. That is RF planning. So there are some companies that are helping those companies. They keep doing it because whenever they find a issue with connectivity, they request the services of these small companies. They go around and find a spot and provide a report to these operator companies to erect new towers. That is a different kind of business. I don't know about the scalability of that, but there's a good business. From investment point of view, I'm not sure. Then from a tower point of view, under the tower, you know, telecom is the biggest diesel consumer after railways. Next to railways, it consumes the most diesel, almost equal, I think, a little less. So you have a huge business who install the diesel generators and manage it, basically, the power source, basically. We have companies who do that. In the future, what happens is when you move away, when the technology companies make sure that you start consuming less power, you design equipment that consume less power, people may move away from diesel to renewable. Means instead of diesel generator, you may have solar panels installed there with battery support. So that is a wonderful ecosystem. Means you have solar panel, you have batteries, means you have so many battery cells packaged specifically for telecom tower purpose. Then you have battery management system software that is monitoring the charging, discharging, and other stuff, so that the backup can be picked in, other cells can be replaced, and you have a wonderful infra that is going to come. Because when we move away, when the number of towers increase, you cannot expect a physical presence to be there to manage power. So you may move away from diesel, but most of the cases, right, the diesel theft is a big problem. It used to be a big problem for all the telecom companies. There is no security. If you want to put a security at every tower, it costs. There never used to be security, and one day you realize that tower is not working. Why is it? There is no diesel in the generator. The power went off. The generator didn't start. So tower is off the network. So no connectivity. The diesel theft was an issue. I think now they are working on it. Maybe I don't know the business aspect of that. But when you move away from diesel to renewable, that itself is a huge ecosystem where you will have companies, as I was telling, who supply solar panel, who supply battery cells, the companies who pack those battery cells and create a battery pack specific to this that particular site. Then you will have a battery management software to manage the charging, discharging, and reporting to a centralized station. And you have companies who aggregate solar panel, battery cells, battery packs, battery management software, and provide an integrated service. So that's going to be a niche area that I don't know when it's going to happen, but there is no other go. You cannot have a physical power source that is expensive at every tower when the number increases, and it's very expensive. So why should I pay 8 or 9 rupees per unit? I want to stay with 1 or 2 rupees, and I want to use solar power during daylight, and in the night I want to go for battery. That makes economic sense. But how are they going to implement? Is that our company going to manage by themselves, or are they going to hire another company that are going to provide energy solutions to all these telecom companies and other stuff? That's going to be a sunrise business. I'm curious about that. I'm expecting something may come out of that. I don't have any companies to name at this point of time, but something around. If you study more, you may find something. Sorry. So that
Yeah.
is a
So
combination of
Satish,
software and other stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
right. On the networking product companies who are into marketing or distribution, for example, companies of the like of D-Link, which have parents in Taiwan, if I remember right. So do you find these companies have something which is, I mean, from investment point of view, something unique to offer, or as you were saying, we need to evaluate from longevity or from that perspective?
See, dealing works here, right? They work on the left side of this line. I don't know whether they are on the right side. Right side is dominated by Cisco, Juniper, and Huawei, the data products. So I'm not sure whether anybody would make a new investment to get into that area because there is already a stable business. The technology is stable. Unless you have a huge economic advantage, you don't get to see new companies coming there. But dealing, if you see, it's more on the left side of the thing where they provide uh, home level routing products like Wi-Fi router and other stuff. And their presence on this side is not great. There may be some small presence, like within the data center, if they want to have some switches or something, that's fine. But the carrier grade network equipment, where that carries huge amount of data and that is mission critical, is still dominated by the multinational like Cisco, Juniper, or Huawei. Dealing doesn't have a presence there. That's my understanding.
Right. And when we have to talk about the risks, regulation is one policy you highlighted, and what other risks from an investor point of view we need to be very cautious whenever we are investing in any companies throughout the value chain, some common risk or maybe specific to the maybe something related to operators or tower companies or product companies. So any thoughts around the risk which needs to be kept in?
Okay, I'll give an example. Maybe there's a company called STL Tech that is listed in India, right? It is a very unique company. They're the only Indian company or one of the few companies in the world that manufactures optic fibers, not the cable, optic fibers. There are so many optic fiber companies in India, but STL is one of the few companies in the world that manufactures optic fibers. Okay. Before, when the standards were out, before the trial started, right? Both STL Tech claim that they have a radio equipment that can go with the operator, basically. That operator can use to mount it close to this on the tower so that they can talk to this mobile equipment. They are the interface that converts the data what you receive from radio and transmits onto the real hard network. Okay, this is where the real money is. This is where the niche skill is. So STL Tech announced that they are coming out with a product called Garuda. They somehow have found the technology. They will manufacture. Now it's a risk, right? It's a dilemma. So should you invest in STL Tech, assuming that they get the technology right? They go with the trials, go for trials with operators. Operators are happy. Then they go for auction. Post auction, they place tons of orders to STL. So that once that happens, STL should go to the next level, right? They have huge orders. Once they have a reference of one of the operators, they can replicate that performance in with other operators throughout the world, because there are fightful operators and everybody will start investing in 5G at some point of time. Today, India is rising. We have 40% 5G penetration. China 70%. Europe is still 20%. But for some reason, STL didn't go through trials. They couldn't get through. That's my understanding. I didn't see anything. So if you want to invest in STL Tech, as soon as you understood that STL is going to work on a radio equipment that is used for 5G, that is supposed to be crucial, it's a leap of faith. Anything can happen. Okay, from operator point of view, they bid for 5G spectrum. They committed money. They placed the order with technology firms. They bought the equipment. They invested huge capex. They have the network up and running with 5G. For some reason, if the technology is not favored by the end user, for example, if everybody says, see, I don't know even a single guy who is paying for 5G till now. 5G is free. That's why we are all using. Tomorrow, if for some reason Bharti says, if you want to use 5G, you need to pay 500 rupees. But if you otherwise, you can stay with 4G for 200 rupees. That way, in that case, if the end user feels, hey, I'm not finding a huge advantage with 5G, I'm okay if I get 20 Mbps speed. I don't care whether I'm getting 100 Mbps or not. If technology fails to appeal the end user, then operator is going to lose money and he's going to stay with his equipment forever, because his business plan assumed that he is going to generate 500 rupees from a 5G user. If the 5G user is not ready to pay, then you are gone. That's the risk. So it's a risky thing. So how you are going to invest is it's a different topic altogether. But it's a leap of faith, Prince. You need to trust, you need to take risk, and you need to scale up your investment. It's a pure tech investment, basically. That's how it works. You cannot go all out unless you have uh, unless you do your deep study. But through deep study, you can understand technically. You can see that it's going to work, but business can go either way. But a slow scale up
So,
is always good.
yeah, under technology, you had mentioned chip makers, software vendors, and core technology enablers. So, any few names to highlight in Indian parlance, if there are any, and specifically after that, you highlight the role of PDS, TSDSI, right?
Yes.
So, in policy making, that will play a pivotal role as far as upcoming 60 is concerned, right? So how going forward that will change the landscape of Indian telecom sector and for that matter investment. I mean, of course, we need to link everything from investors' point of view.
Right. Basically, TSA is a consortium backed by Government of India to represent Indian interests in standards. So let me see whether I can open TSDSI website. Okay, wonderful. See here, you have everyone here. You have membership, present members. These are all the members who are part of TSDSI and they contribute to the standards, keeping their interest in mind. Then I'll go through corporate members. Just check out the names. These are all the names that are working on 6G, keeping India's interest and their own interest in mind. So we have Apple, Astrom. Some companies may be private, they may become SME, or they may get listed, or they may be acquired. Anything can happen at some point of time. At this point of time, it provides a list of companies that are showing intent to work on 6G, and they have allocated some small amount towards that. For example, if you see this random company like Astrom Technologies, what they do basically, it's a corporate 1E kind of member. It provides, it's a telecom a network manufacturer with Indian product related IPR. It has licensed Indian design or technology. So you can just study this company. It's a private limited company, not listed. At some point of time, these are the companies. If everything clicks, they may go public. You get an investment opportunity. Then we have Bharti, we have CDOT, CDAC, the government firms. Then we have something called Dhruva Space Private Limited. They're all investing. Then Dolby Technology, Elena Geosystems, Enhanced Communication Technologies, Ericsson, and you have all IITs involved in this. So this is a list of companies that are prospective. How many are going to be successful? Nobody knows. And we have something called National Smart Grid Mission. They are also pushing their case in standards so that all these grids, right, whether it is a power grid or something, they will have an influence on how 6G transmission can be managed. And we have something called neural networks that provide something. See, they're all unknown names right now, but some of them may become big at some point of time. So just go through the members who are in this list. We have Tejas here. If you're serious about your participation, you have to be part of TSDSI. Then we have associate members. Associate members are these one. Then we have guest members. So usually I look at these things. What is their participation? If I find it interesting, I just make a list and put a watch list, and with that I get some idea whenever something happens in the company. And that possibility is very less number of companies that are going to click, but without some of these companies be clicked, the technology won't move forward. That is one technique I use. And of course, if you're not in this list, still if you are participating in the telecom evolution, that means you are in a domain that is not technology, but that is service, like laying the cable, erecting the tower, or managing the optic fiber cable quality on a day-to-day basis, making sure that there is no disruption, that kind of services, or helping the operator in finding out a new RF site, we call as RF planning, that kind of solution they provide. They come, if you see most of the SME IPOs that happen, right? They may claim all those things, what big things doesn't matter, but they are in a pure service area where they fill the gaps. They do high, low value from an operator perspective, that kind of work. That's
So on Yeah, on and off, like lately we see data that how many new users are added to one operator or the other, right? So therein recently we saw decline with Airtel and Geo numbers, and there was humble addition to BSNL and companies of that like. So in that parlance, like if operators, you said there should be three, four operators, and also maybe for the tower companies. So it is always wise to play a basket approach as far as investment is concerned, or I mean, picking individual
No,
companies which
investment
have
is all about
majority.
risk management, right? Nobody knows about the return spreads. How do you know how much money you are going to make? As long as investment is all about survival, as long as I keep my capital intact, some way, one day I'll get the growth. If I bet on one company, if that company fails, I'm going to lose the capital. Then I'm useless in the market, right? As an investor, I need to be present in all the companies and make sure that I have the right allocation to those companies. Say, for example, from an operator point of view, I'm very clear. Bharti Airtel is an operator, but I don't know how to allocate to Geo because Geo is part of Reliance. So, how Geo is going to be listed? What would be out of the current price of Reliance? How Geo will get? What would be the Geo price if at all it gets listed in the future? I don't know, but you need to play both, and at some point of time, out of an idea also, if you get a feel that they are going to survive and their investment parlance is resolved, their issues are resolved. But basket is always good, irrespective of whether it's telecom or any other industry. You know, always need to play the basket. But based on your experience and other stuff, you can change the allocation weights.
And as far as total addressable market is concerned, so do you believe the small tower companies have that much capability so as to match at least the biggies within the same segment?
Which one, for example?
Be it like if I particularly ask about Suyog, so do you believe it can match companies of the likes of Indus Tower?
It may happen, but they won't surpass. See, Suyog may grow. I think Suyog has around 4,000 towers, right? Indus has 2,200 towers. Indus may grow from 2,200 towers to 500,000 towers. In the same place, Suyog may grow from 4,000 towers to 40,000 towers. That is possible. But Suyog surpassing Indus, no, I don't know whether I can take that kind of bet. But Suyog at a standalone, they may grow decently, no doubt. But it has its own pros and cons. But you will allocate accordingly, right? You cannot pull out your money from Bharti Airtel and allocate to Suyog. Of course, you can with your tower allocation, you can allocate more to Suyog and less to Indus. But but that's where it is. But it has that particular sector has a lot of tailwinds. But diversification is the key here.
So one question is from Mani Inderpal. He's asking, HTL Limited is subsidiary of HFCL.
Hmm.
Is what you mentioned, right?
No, STL Tech. STL is different. Is STL Tech, right? Sterlite Technology Limited. HFCL is different. HFCL is different. STL is different. STL Tech is a listed player that is somewhere related to Vedanta.
Right, fair enough. And when it comes to management, so then obviously one hygiene check is common across the companies, leave aside any sector in particular, but something specific to the sector that you see as far as the management is concerned, do you believe they should have some technocrat kind of background, or it doesn't matter? It's like a normal management profiling we need to do, which we
No,
do
no,
for
no,
other
no.
sectors. Or
In all these things, right? There are deep tech companies. All these technology companies are operator companies. So the quality of human resource that is required is little high here. At least you cannot manage operations of Bharti or Geo with less competent people. At the same time, the kind of hiring that these telecom technology companies do is little high quality. So it's a deep pocket business, and you always need to look at the quality of people who are working. And the one thing I would look for is the number of patents they are filing. If they're filing more patents means something is happening. Otherwise, a day-to-day maintenance work, right? If you're not focusing on innovation, means you're not into technology business. Means you don't have the right set of people. That's my
Right.
read, but
And
I may be wrong. Yeah.
so on the ARPU front, like what we need to see basis which we can identify that this company is working well and they can improve upon ARPU, or is it like it would remain more or less same for the players who are sizable, equivalent? I mean, say for example, Bharti Airtel, Jio, or one or two more operators. I mean,
Mhm.
any influences around.
That's all. It will be domain three, four operators, and ARPU will increase over a period of time. And it's a tricky thing, right? Unless the average income of Indian increases, government doesn't allow them to increase ARPU. If they increase ARPU, then they will because they need to pay money to the because they have a wonderful system to collect money from operators. No, anyway, spectrum fees is fixed. It is bid and they need to pay back over a period of time, 20 years. But the service spectrum usage fee, SUC or something, whatever is there, they need to pay around 3 to 5% of the revenue to government every year. So there it's painful, but ARPU has to increase. They need to pay money to the government, but it will happen at some point of time. But somehow the operators should find a way with differential pricing and get the government on their side. But that's going to happen. Now, what happens, right? If the operators bleed, the whole sector bleeds basically. If the operators are not making money, they won't invest in new technologies and investment. That means your own technology companies suffer. And if your network is not good, how do you put new services basically? How do you go to the next generation manufacturing where you need a lot of Wi-Fi and wireless communication. You need operators. You need a lot of investment for operators. For example, if enough 5G investment is not made, how do you make sure that you have automated factories producing high technology goods and high value goods? So it will happen at some point of time. When is the question? So it's a
So
leap of
within the,
faith.
yeah, sorry. So within the utility companies, the sub-segments you highlighted within the utility companies, wherein you feel the maximum chances of making good money for the companies, is it the and data connectivity or internet services, or maybe the infrastructure services, or I mean, how you see that
See, there are
particularly?
two kinds of companies here, basically, right? One is utility companies, they are B2C companies, the companies that deal with the end consumer, Bharti and Jio, and they are B2B companies. They don't deal with the end user, but they provide data and connectivity services to corporates. For example, Tata Communications, right? They don't deal with the end customer, but they provide the backbone. A Railtel Corporation. See, they have a wonderful optical fiber network and they provide the optical connection partially to all these operators. Because Railtel, if you see, they have the optic fiber laid all across the railway line, around 60 to 70,000 kilometers. And if somebody wants an optical connectivity between two towns, suppose if Airtel wants, they may go through Railtel. Don't want to take the headache of laying their own cable everywhere. Of course, they may have something. So that is one good thing. They're all long mode businesses, right? See, optic fiber cable and this operator where you have bought the spectrum, they are wonderful businesses. You have the raw material with you. Like the way this Railtel and Tata Communication, they have somehow they managed permissions and they have laid the cables and they have already have a capacity. For example, if you got a chance, if you would have observed, if somebody is laying optic fiber cable near your house, is orange cable basically, right? That is the optic fiber cable that they lay. This orange cable has 32 fiber threads in it, and every thread is a optic fiber that that has the ability to carry huge data. So, for example, this Railtel had laid that high capacity 42 core cable all across the railway line, and they invested. And for their usage, they needed only 6 to 7 fibers, and they had around 35, 36 fibers free that they can rent it to or lease it to all these companies, including all the corporations who want to transmit the data, basically, and make money out of it. And their capex is done. It's only OPEX with respect to minor equipment replacement and other stuff. So it is a free flowing money for them. So from that point of view, even the neutral operators will make money, Prince, at some point of time. All these Tata Communications, Railtel, even people are talking about even Power Grid has some optic fiber thing. I didn't study it, but maybe I'll get a chance and see how much value they can add to the ecosystem. And otherwise, you should invest some of your money with operators and also keep searching companies in the technology space, and don't ignore the service providers, basically, the tower companies and the companies that provide services to telecom companies, because the business may be less, but they are continuous businesses. They may not be scalable, but they are still sustainable business that and they do the kind of work that the big companies may not want to do at some point. So
So,
since the
Satheesha,
industry is growing, they'll also
yeah,
grow.
yeah. Does it make economic sense, for example, say for the operators to forward and backward integrate of their requirements, or how the structure is throughout the value chain on this?
I didn't understand. What is the question? I didn't understand. Sorry.
So basically, say for example, for any chemical companies, right? So normally the raw material they get and they try to forward and backward integrate on both those fronts, right? And
Mm.
they try to make both products from the product which they were making so as to improve their margins. So likewise, do we have something say for the operators companies? Does
Yeah,
it
yeah,
make
yeah, yeah.
any sense?
All those things happens here in this stage, right? Technology company, when they do trial, operators always see what is the price, and when the sales cycle happens, see from here, the operators will have an influence on even the components that these technology companies use. It should not happen that post trials, operators are stuck with the high cost goods or the products that they have no influence on. So they try to influence even the vendors who are supplying components to these technology companies. That's where the government says, I want some percentage of components that are being used in these products from our country. They may come up with a policy. A telecom operator says, hey, I don't want you to use components that I don't have control on. I want you to build the company. I want some of the components or some of the critical components that are under my control. For example, if you are using a component that are critical from, say, a company X, and if telecom operator says that I don't want that component because my country has some issues with that company or country, my business may be at risk. So definitely they'll say no, and the trial may not happen. Did it answer that
Okay.
question?
Yes, yes, it does. And also, like for companies, say, who are catering to domestic demand at this point in time, be it on the infra side and all, they are also trying to expand to outside India. So, on the business viability front, how easy or
It's
difficult
wonderful.
that is?
It's wonderful. Basically, if somebody can have an equipment in one of the operators in their home country, because all these equipments are not customized, right? They are standard based. If some equipment is working in your home country operator with their support or government support, there are very high chances that they can expand it outside. That's what Tejas is doing, no? Tejas is selling equipments outside also, along with India. And with the government support and backing, they will make their product good here. Once the product is good, it's just replicating and scaling it up. So that is very important. If your product is doing very well in your home country or one of the operators, the chances of your business doing good in other markets is bright. They're the investment candidate and it's worth taking risk there.
And on the government front, like what all initiatives or what all things have been done from government's point of view, which are helping the industry and going forward also, do you think those will remain or because that will bring some uncertainty, right? At this point in time, government is helping, but going forward, they may pull out those initiative
But
or benefits going forward.
with the current trend, they help, but you don't know, right? In democracy, you don't know, anything can happen. That is a dark horse. Basically. Anything can happen. But let's hope for the best. But the people who are running the business, the operators, they make sure that their business is not impacted. But there is no definitive answer. But the intent is to make sure that the end customer is always beneficial. And no government is going to help the operator at the cost of end customer. That you need to understand. So all the policies are
Perfect.
triggered to make sure that the end customer is benefited.
Perfect. So one last call for our audience in case they have any questions. Common questions I have already taken. So anybody wish to ask anything, we can certainly. So Satish, in my limited capacity, I try asking all the questions which were there in my mind. But anything you had you wanted to cover or yet to cover, would appreciate that. Or otherwise, we'll close for the day. So, anything more, Satish, from your end, which you
Nothing.
want to cover?
Understand telecom if you want to invest in technology. Telecom is the base.
Perfect.
It doesn't start and end here. If you want to understand, because telecom is one of the huge data aggregators in the world. If somebody can do anything with respect to artificial intelligence or anything, it has to happen either from telecom domain or the banking domain, because both the sectors touch people's lives. That's where things happen. So there is a movement here, and telecom operators also are the cloud operators in India. They're the biggest cloud operators along with Adani. So they're all connected business. The technology roadmap is controlled by operators, basically, unless there's a disruption that I'm not seeing at this point of time. If it happens, good. But at this point of time, understand telecom so that you can be a better investor in technology and communications. That provides capital to invest in other sectors.
Perfect. So, thank you so much, Satish, for taking out time and holistically discuss small nuances to the sector, and it was really helpful. And going forward, also, in case there would be more questions from our audience when I upload this on YouTube, definitely I'll come with those questions, and you can always take the leverage to ask you for another session as and when time demands. So thank you so much for taking out
Sure.
time.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Okay. Because it's only 11:30. Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for